and welcome to the Environment This Week series section of Drishti IAS. I'm Aisha, and in today's episode we will be covering topics which are important from General Studies paper 3, that is environment and ecology. So the basic concept what we follow is that we have taken 4 most important news with regards to environment and ecology section from this week's current affairs, and then we will be talking about the static portion of it, and in the end we will be asking practice questions from them. So let's begin. So the important news of the week are Indian rock python carbon footprint, Madhav Gadgil Champions of the Earth Award, and then greenhouse gases emissions and what is its relationship with the economic growth. Before we start, Drishti IAS Mukherjee Nagar classes has now shifted to Noida. So the first batch of the English medium has already started and the admissions are still open. So if you people want, you can go and take admissions in the offline batches. And if you are traveling by metro, then the nearest metro station is Noida Sector 15. If you have any query, give us a call at 9311406440. And the address for the new center is Noida Center C171/2 Block A Sector 15, Noida. Now, keeping in mind your UPSC CSE 2025 attempt and both your prelims and mains preparation needs to be done on time. So Drishti IAS has come up with a new program, and that is Sambhav 2025. So few of the features are, under this you will get 10 prelims question on daily basis plus 2 mains answer writing questions. So your MCQ and answer writing both will be taken care of. Then the complete coverage of current affairs plus general studies, in-depth analysis of previous year questions and many other features. Now let's begin with the first news, and that is the Indian rock python. And look at the image. This is how the Indian rock python looks like, and many a times in the Indian movies or the serials you must have seen that there is one snake which completely covers the body of the humans, and then in the end when the human die, so they completely cover the body, and that is how the human die, and that is what the procedure is. So that is the technique of a python. Now the Indian rock python species is believed to have declined across the Tamil Nadu, and this is the news because of which it is in news. So let's talk about the Indian rock python. So it is large in size and it is non-venomous python species. So whenever we look at python, we tend to think that they must be venomous, but pythons are non-venomous. So the Indian rock python is a non-venomous species among the python species. And the common names of the Indian rock python are black-tailed python and Asian rock python. And about the appearance, how it looks like. Now this is the image. So this is how it looks like. Now the image, the appearance is that Indian pythons are usually whitish or yellowish in color with the blotched patterns varying from tan to dark brown shades. Now look at this image. So these are the blotched patterns on the skin of the python. These are the blotched pattern, and in between you will see either they are yellowish in color or whitish in color. Then this varies with terrain and habitat. So depending on the terrain and habitat, the color of the skin of the python varies. Then if we talk about the habitat of the python, so that is they live in a wide range of habitats, like for example grasslands and savannas, swamps, marshes, rocky foothills, woodlands, open forest and river valleys. So these are few of the habitats of the python. Then about its distribution, where are the regions, where are they mainly found? So the Indian pythons are found in India, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and probably in the north of Myanmar. So basically the countries that you are seeing, they are the South Asian countries. Then they are nocturnal and mainly terrestrial creatures. So nocturnal, basically they work at night or they can see clearly at night. Then very good climbers and can often be seen hanging on branches of trees. So they can go to the top of a tree also because the climbing capabilities is very high and very good. Then Indian pythons are excellent swimmers also, and that is what makes them deadly in nature, that they can climb very high also to the trees and they can swim also. Now, if we talk about the conservation status of the Indian python, so that is the IUCN red list status is near threatened. So, the conservation status is fine. Then CITES, it comes under Appendix 2, and the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, it comes under Schedule 1. So, this is the conservation status. And threats, if we talk about, so they are near threatened in nature. So, the numbers of the Indian python are not at risk. So, the threats can be habitat destruction and illegal trade. Now, illegal trade is one of the major issues with regard to the population or the sustainability of pythons. So, that needs to be stopped. Now, coming to the second point, and that is the carbon footprint. So, whenever we talk about carbon footprints, what comes to our mind is the carbon emissions that we are doing, or an individual is doing, or any organization is doing, or a state is doing, or a country is doing on the whole. So, that is carbon footprint. So, it came to the news as the world becomes more reliant on space technologies. Now, space technologies, as the number of satellites and the space aircraft are rising. So, what comes to the forefront is that how much emission are they also causing to the environment, and space debris concept is also coming up now more and more. So, because of the space technology, the greenhouse gases emissions is also getting increased. Now, according to the WHO, what is a carbon footprint? So, a carbon footprint is a measure of the impact people's activities have on the amount of carbon dioxide produced through the burning of fossil fuels, and is expressed as a weight of carbon dioxide emissions produced in tons. So, basically you need to know that the carbon dioxide which is produced and also which is emitted into the atmosphere, it is basically measured in the volume of tons. So, it is measured in the volume of tons, and carbon footprints means that at an individual level, or at a family level, organization level, state level, or country level, how much carbon emissions are being done to the environment is what is known as carbon footprint, and the measurement of it is done in the category of tons. Then it is usually measured as tons of CO2 emitted per year. So, in one single year, how much emission of carbon dioxide is done, or how much tons of carbon dioxide is emitted into the atmosphere. A number that can be supplemented by tons of CO2 equivalent gases, including methane, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases. Now, what happens is, whenever we talk about greenhouse gases, so greenhouse gases does not only comprise of carbon dioxide, it comprises of other gases also, like for example methane, nitrous oxide, and other greenhouse gases. Now, all of these greenhouse gases are combined together, and then they are also given, or whenever we talk about, so you will see that the combination of all is known as equivalent to 10 ton of CO2, because the conversion is done in such a way that all these gases are also converted into the tons of CO2 category, and that is why it is always written that it is equivalent to 10 tons of CO2 or 5 tons of CO2, and that is why it is measured as tons of CO2 emitted per year. So, GHG does not only mean carbon dioxide, it means other gases also. Then it can be considered as a broad measure, or to be applied to the actions of an individual, family, event, organization, or an entire nation that I just talked about. Then out of all, coal, it is the coal which has the largest carbon footprint among other sources of energy. So, among all the sources of energy, it is the coal which has the highest carbon footprint. And if we talk about the Kyoto Protocol, so according to the Kyoto Protocol, there are 6 greenhouse gases, and that can be carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride. So, these are few of the gases which comes under the category of greenhouse gases. Now comes the third topic, and that is the Madhav Gadgil. So, this is the image of the environmentalist Madhav Gadgil, and the news is that the Indian ecologist Madhav Gadgil, renowned for his work on the protection of the Western Ghats, he has been named a UNEP Champion of the Earth 2024 in the Lifetime Achievement category. So the category is Lifetime Achievement category, and the name of the award that he has received is UNEP Champion of the Earth 2024 award, and his basic area is conservation of Western Ghat or protection of Western Ghat. Now if we talk about the Western Ghats, then this is the map of India. This is peninsular India. These are the Western Ghats covering the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. So these are the Western Ghats, a region which is very rich in biodiversity, number of flora and fauna, and is also one of the hotspots of the world, and the 4 hotspots which are present in or around India. Now the award, that is the Champion of the Earth award, was established in the year 2005, and it is awarded by, so the award is given by UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program, and the aim of the award is to honor individuals, groups and organizations making transformative environmental contributions. Transformative environmental contributions. So Madhav Gadgil, with respect to Western Ghats, has made a transformative contributions in Indian ecology. Now the categories in which the award is given are Lifetime Achievement, Policy Leadership, Inspiration and Action, Science and Innovation, and Entrepreneurial Vision. And Madhav Gadgil has received the award in the category of Lifetime Achievement. Then if we talk about Madhav Gadgil and his major important work on the from the respect of Western Ghats, so that is Madhav Gadgil Committee report on ecologically sensitive zones in the Western Ghat. So this was the work that he has done, and this report was very, very famous. And the Gadgil Commission was formed to study the impact of population pressure, climate change and development activities on the Western Ghats. So on the Western Ghats, what all pressure is being put because of the increasing population, climate change and other activities. Then the committee submitted its report in the year 2011. Now coming to the recommendations which the Madhav Gadgil committee report gave, few of the recommendations are that they talked about designating the entire region as an ecologically sensitive area. So the region of the Western Ghats must be given the tag of ecologically sensitive area. So these are the recommendations that the Madhav Gadgil committee report made. Then almost all environmental activities like mining, construction of the thermal power plants and dams need to be stopped, or any kind of commercial activity also needs to be stopped, which puts more and more pressure on the sensitive ecosystem of the Western Ghats. Then in all the zones, genetically modified crops, in all the zones the genetically modified crops should not be allowed, and the use of plastic bags must also be prohibited. So any kind of activity which is putting pressure on the Western Ghats or which can prove dangerous for the ecology of the Western Ghats, or anything which might impact the Western Ghats in a negative way in the future, all these needs to be stopped. Then decentralization and more power must be given to the local authorities, to the people or the local communities which are residing in the Western Ghats since last many decades or centuries, and they are the people who are more used to the ecology, or they are the people who know the Western Ghats from very, very close, or the close relationship is what they have observed over years. And the local authorities also needs to have some power with regard to the protection of the Western Ghats. Then establishment of a Western Ghats Ecology Authority under the Environment Protection Act of 1896. Then comes the next topic, and that is the greenhouse gases emissions and the economic growth, or you can say the greenhouse gas emissions versus economic growth. So with each passing year or the each passing quarters, even though the economic growth is taking place. So what impact does it having on the greenhouse gases emissions? So if the economic growth is taking place, are the numbers or the percentage of greenhouse gases emissions coming down, or is the economic growth taking place and also the amount of the greenhouse gases emissions are also going up? Now that won't be a good scenario if both are going up. If both are going down, that won't be a good scenario also. What will be an ideal scenario? That the economic growth of a country is taking place, but the greenhouse gases emissions are going down. Now this would be an ideal scenario, but a very, very difficult scenario to be achieved. Now let's see what is the scenario in India. So Indian economy has consistently showcased its robust growth over the past few decades, and India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world also. And if we talk about the last quarter has not been very good, that is the quarter 2, but overall if we will see in the last 10 to 20 years, then Indian GDP or the Indian growth rate has been very good. But higher economic growth is believed to have come with increasing environmental pressure, notably through higher greenhouse gases emissions. So greenhouse gases emissions, we just talked about what are GHGs. It can be carbon dioxide, it can be carbon monoxide, hydrofluorocarbon, nitrous oxide, sulfur hexafluorooxide also. So these can be few of the examples of the greenhouse gases. Then if higher economic growth is taking place in our country, then more number of carbon emissions are also taking place because of the process of the industrialization. Then according to the economic survey, that is 2023-24, it claims that India has managed to grow its economy without significantly increasing its greenhouse gases emissions. So the economic survey talks about that the India has managed to grow its economy without significantly increasing its greenhouse gases emissions. So this point of the economic survey, actually the debate started to happen that is it true or not. So is it true in absolute sense or is it true in relative sense? So it is true in relative sense, not absolute sense. Now, what does the economic survey 2023-24 talks about? It talks about that the relative decoupling achieved. Now, relative decoupling achieved means, decoupling means that coupling means two aspects coming together and decoupling means two aspects going far from each other. So, the two aspects here is greenhouse gases emissions and the other one is what? It is the economic growth. So, the greenhouse gases emissions and the economic growth are going far from each other. So, relatively it has been achieved, absolutely it has not been achieved. So, relative decoupling achieved, that is between the year 2005 to 2019, India's GDP grew at a 7% CAGR while the greenhouse gases emissions increased by 4%. Now, what is the meaning of the term relative? Relative means something is happening, so this happened. Now, relative decoupling achieved means, now you need to listen properly. It means, see, absolute decoupling means that economic growth is taking place, like for example, if economic growth is taking place at 7% per year, then the greenhouse gases emissions must decrease and these two must be very separate from each other. That is, economic growth is taking place and greenhouse gases emissions are coming down. Now this would be a absolute decoupling, that is both are absolutely separate from each other. Now what is relative decoupling? Relative decoupling means that if economic growth is taking place at a percentage of 7% per year, I am giving you an example, then greenhouse gases emissions is also rising, but it is rising at 4% per year. But even though it is rising, but relatively as compared to the economic growth, it is lesser. See, economic growth rising at a percentage of 7%, but greenhouse gases emissions are rising at a percentage of 4%. So 4% is less than 7%. So economic growth is high, but greenhouse gases emissions, even though they are taking place, but they are taking place at a lesser pace than the economic growth. So relatively it is lesser. Absolute in absolute terms, what will happen? That both must be separate from each other. This is increasing economic growth, but the greenhouse gases emissions must be zero or must be very, very low. But that is not the scenario. The scenario is that even though economic growth is taking place, but the greenhouse gases emissions, even though they are taking place, but is lesser than the economic growth. So, relative decoupling is what is achieved under the Economic Survey of 2023-24. So, that is between the year 2005 and 19, India's GDP grew at 7%, while GHG emissions increased by 4%. So, that is how relative decoupling has been achieved. Then, emission intensity reduction. So, what does it talk about? Emission intensity reduction. It means that the intensity at which the carbon emissions is taking place. So, India reduced emission intensity by 33% from the 2005 levels, achieving its 2030 nationally determined contributions target 11 years early. So, nationally determined contributions has been achieved and the intensity has been reduced. Next comes the carbon sink expansion. So, India aims to add a 2.5 to 3 billion ton carbon sink by the year 2030, building on the 1.97 billion tons achieved in years between 2005 to 2019. So, overall, if we talk about the NDCs, then India is doing well and is on its path to achieve the NDCs. So, this was the fourth topic, and the topics that we have discussed till now becomes 4. So, that is GHG emissions and economic growth. Before this, we discussed about the Madhav Gadgil Award. And before it, we discussed about carbon footprint, and before it, Indian rock python. Now, coming to the practice questions, and like always that I ask you, you people will give me the answer in the comment section. Now, coming to the practice questions, and you people will give me the answer in the comment section. So, how are you going to do it? Write question number 1, 2, 3, 4 and write the answer in front of it and give me the answer in the comment section. So, the first question is, in IUCN Red List, the Indian rock python has been placed in which category? Endangered, vulnerable, near threatened or critically endangered? Next question. Question number 2. Which of the following is an example of direct emissions? Direct emissions. So, that is driving a gasoline car, buying imported goods, using solar powered appliances or consuming packaged food. Now, coming to question number 3. The Madhav Gadgil has received which of the following prestigious award? Nobel Peace Prize, Global Biodiversity Award, Green Earth Honor or Champions of the Earth Award. Now, last question of the day. That is, according to the Economic Survey 2023-24, India has achieved economic growth and what type of decoupling in terms of greenhouse gases emissions? So, that is complete decoupling, or you can say absolute decoupling, regional decoupling, or you can say sectoral decoupling, relative decoupling, or none of the above. We have discussed all in the video. So, give me the answer in the comment section. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time. Keep reading, keep writing and keep subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.